Hi there, my name is Fahd and I've just graduated from economics at Cambridge University, and you're watching Get Personal with Team Upside. So I think for me, the most difficult part is probably almost getting started with it. So I'd say the whole kind of formulating the ideas, working out the structure of what it was that I wanted to put in terms of the content. And because I'm the type of person that likes to kind of plan everything ahead when I'm like writing stuff, so then I was always like, I want to get this, I want to know kind of what I'm writing in each paragraph before I actually even did my first draft. And kind of getting those ideas in my head was probably the most difficult part. What I did, I think, was that I reached out to a few people that I kind of had access to kind of through my school that I knew had already gotten into Cambridge. So I reached out to them kind of asking for advice. So it was a couple of people that were already studying kind of at Cambridge, were helpful in terms of they sent me their personal statements, and then also gave me advice on kind of how I should go about structuring it, because as I said, that's kind of the thing that I was finding the most difficult about it. So I guess the way I kind of set it out was I had my introductory and concluding paragraphs kind of trying to tie both things together that I was trying to say, and then the main body of it was primarily focused on things related to the subject I was applying for, so for economics. So I had, I believe, 2 or 3 paragraphs kind of about different books that I'd read relating to economics and the things that I found interesting from them, the ideas that I kind of took away from them as well, that I found particularly interesting. So I had my intro, those 3 paragraphs, and then just an extra one kind of about my extracurricular activities, so kind of positions of responsibility I'd had at school or other things that I'd been involved in, and then my concluding paragraph kind of tying it all together. There's probably 2 things that I tried focusing on kind of above anything else. The first of those would be, I guess, kind of my own personal experience and drawing that into why I was passionate for economics. So what I did in terms of that is, I'm originally from Pakistan, so I kind of talked about kind of the inequality and economic hardship that I've seen almost firsthand when I've been back to visit there with my family. So kind of using that kind of to almost generate an emotional response, but then also to show that as a reason that made economics in particular interesting to me, rather than just, I guess, what you might call a more generic answer of I'm interested in economics because it tells us about the world around us, that kind of thing. I had like kind of a specific thing about the world that I wanted to try and understand a bit better, which I think I was able to do kind of through looking a lot into development economics while I was doing my degree. And then the other thing I'd say was using the books that I'd read to kind of tie in with that idea. So for example, I talked a lot about kind of the applications of economics to the real world through the books that I'd read, and that was quite helpful kind of, I think, in making it stand out a bit more as well. The thing that I'd kind of take out from my personal statement would be in one of the paragraphs where I was talking about kind of the books that I read. So if I just read out kind of the paragraph about that, The Return of Depression Economics, I said, having read The Return of Depression Economics by Krugman, I've gained an appreciation of how diverse economics is. Particularly engaging was his explanation of how important the so-called shadow banking system had become in advance of the financial crisis, explaining why it had been allowed to grow and the consequences of investors losing faith in the system. I find it fascinating that a lack of confidence can become self-fulfilling, and I'd like to explore this in more depth at university. So I'd say it was that last sentence saying, I find it fascinating that a lack of confidence can become self-fulfilling, and I'd like to explore this more in depth at university, because that really kind of wrapped up the paragraph, I think, in quite a powerful way. And it almost, from my point of view, showed, or from kind of whoever was looking at my application's point of view, showed that I was kind of thinking beyond just what was said in the book, and I wasn't just reproducing the ideas that Krugman had pointed out. Sure, yeah. I think the way I kind of looked at it was the way I tried to kind of balance it through using kind of examples of both theory and real world applications of the subject. I think obviously because economics is something where there's a lot of overlap between what's in the theory, whenever you're looking at economic theory, you're then thinking, how can this be applied to the real world? So I think always whenever I think in all the paragraphs, I kind of had a little bit where I was talking maybe about so I'd say 2 things. So first of all, in terms of the books I read, there was a mix of kind of applied and theoretical. And then also within those, when I was talking about the books, if I was talking about The Return of Depression Economics, which is maybe a bit more theoretical, I also related it to the practical applications of that theory. And then when I was talking about the other two books, so The Undercover Economist and then Free Economics, which are a bit more applied, I would also try and make reference to the theoretical underpinnings of the ideas in those books. So I think in the end, I had 5 drafts, and then this was my 5th draft that I used for my personal statement. My process of doing that was I made use of whatever resources I could. So I remember spending a lot of time on the student room, using their kind of personal statement database that they had. And then I used that to bring together my first draft. First people I showed that to were my parents to try and get their advice, and then made minor changes based on that, and took the second draft to some of my teachers at school to see what advice I could get from them. So I was quite lucky in that the teachers at my school were quite helpful in terms of, again, the structuring side of things and what I wanted to emphasize within certain paragraphs, so helping me almost rewrite different paragraphs to make it make my words more effective as well. So I'd say there was a big change between my second and third drafts, and then from the third to the 5th, not too much, just fine-tuning at that point. But I think it's important to try and not just reflect yourself, but then get help from other people and try and get other people's input as well. But then obviously remember that it's your own personal statement at the end of the day, so it should be you that has the final decision of what goes into it. 100%. I'm looking at my personal statements on the side now. I started off with 3 rhetorical questions. Yeah, I'll just read that out. So I said, why is it that the circumstances in which we are born determine so much about how our lives pan out? Are the policies in these countries wrong? Are the policymakers the problem? In my mind, it's a strong opening. The aim's obviously to try and grab their attention. Yeah. What I'd say about that is it does almost go against the advice of getting almost straight to the point and not trying to make it as dramatic as possible. Yeah. Because you want your words to mean something, I think, and I'm not sure what that actually means. What I would say, I think, on that is that with my case, it was a sense of almost trying to build into something. So what that then fed into, those rhetorical questions, was then talking about economic hardship that I'd seen in Pakistan and how that developed my passion for economics. Yeah. And I think the important thing, if you are going to go for something maybe, or trying to be a bit more dramatic or try and grab someone's attention, is that it has some kind of purpose to it. Like, it's not just you're throwing in a cliche or you're saying that, because I've seen some personal statements where they talked about their interest in economics starting from the recession 2008-2009 when they were 8 or 9 years old, and no one's going to believe that if you say something as dramatic as that. So I think the important thing is because you've not got many words, you've not got many characters, to try and make sure that as much as possible you're not wasting any words.